Hello. Today I wanted to make a video about the importance of the High Priestess in our modern society. This isn't like a divination video or anything like that. It's just a video where we explore how the archetypes of the tarot actually live in real society rather than in the fantasy that we project upon them every day. So, the first point that I would make about the High Priestess in society is that she represents a woman who is empowered without having to throw on a power suit to compete with men in a man's world. And this is important because it's a little bit twisted that we sell female empowerment by asking women to make themselves more masculine. You see what I mean? The high priestess represents a woman who stays in her femininity even if it's not profitable. Because let's face it, when we see a high priestess kind of woman in the world, they're not really sitting on a throne, you know, giving orders or having people ask them things. There are usually women who live in the fringes of society because they are seen as witches, as useless people, as time wasters, as women who are loose. So, the point that I'm trying to make is that we actually live in a world, like I said, a man's world, where the value of the high priestess isn't recognized. Because in our world, our value is measured by our utility, by how useful our output is to this male driven society. So let's say that simply what she does isn't useful to the world. When I think of the High Priestess, I think of Princess Diana. Not because she was a High Priestess, she's more like an Empress kind of woman. But Diana had, like the High Priestess, a very rich inner world, a very sensible, emotional realm. And Diana chose to share that with us. She shared her struggles, her psychic, mental, emotional obstacles. She told us, my life isn't perfect. And in that, she found strength because she didn't have to pretend. That's something the high priestess would do. But let's check in with reality for a moment. Because when Diana did that, the world thought that she needed therapy, or that she was a loose woman, or that she was a conspiracy theorist, or that she was being manipulative, or that she was trying to gain attention. All of that is true. You can look it up. But why I'm saying this is to show that even though as a world we like to look at this image of the high priestess and be like, what a sanctified and divine woman, in practice the world doesn't embrace that. So that's why I use the example of Diana, because she did what the world likes to sanctify, which is honesty, emotional transparency, uh, telling the truth from a female perspective. But the world didn't really embrace that. So, to analyze the High Priestess a little bit further, we can compare her to the Hierophant, which is the male counterpart to her role. You know, people don't go to the High Priestess with the same questions they go to the Hierophant. And As silly as it may sound, people look at the high priestess and they're like, what robe are you wearing? Is it Versace or what is it? You know, all of these trivial questions. Are you a feminist? Who are you sitting down in that throne for? And would you like to pose for Vogue? You know, it's that sort of disrespectful, trivial questioning. Whereas the Hierophant, which is the male figure of spiritual authority, is rarely questioned. It's like, Hierophant, just give us the rules and we will clap. And that's not fair. That shows that we do not treat women in the spiritual field with the same seriousness and credibility as we treat men. I think that as a world, we would greatly benefit from learning from the High Priestess because we live in a turbulent world. But look at her. She's sitting calmly between a pillar of light and a pillar of darkness. Whereas in our society, we go from excitement to terror to euphoria to horror in a second of internet browsing. Isn't that crazy? But she's not like that. She's not worried about who is going to get cancelled next, who is going to cause a tragedy next, where is our hero. Those sort of questions don't bother her because she doesn't let the outside world dictate her inner well being. So that is something that we need to learn from her. So, in conclusion, what I'm trying to say is that we need to bridge the gap between society and the figure of the high priestess. You know, we have lived in a man's world, a world created by men for men, that we even believe now that for a female to be strong, she needs to dominate a masculine field. Isn't that crazy? When have we asked men to be dominant in a female field? Tell me that. And when are we going to be equal in that way? When are we going to stop sensationalizing women? Or, by the same coin, when are we going to stop sensationalizing men who have feminine qualities? You know, have we lost the plot so much that we only think that masculinity is important as a society? Is it only okay for a woman to look like a man, but never for a man to look like a woman in whatever way possible? So let's stop sanctifying. Let's stop creating such a horrible distance for the high priestess. Let's stop thinking that she lives in this distant realm of ethereal inner light because she's just sitting there being a woman and she's inviting all of us to do it. She's not like, I'm the queen and only I can do this. No, no, no. She knows that everybody can do it. And that's what we should recognize, that we have suppressed something that is so important to society. And in this video, I detailed why.